It's time to go racing for round number 2 of the Allusion Events iCart series. Barber Motorsport Park plays host for tonight's 54-lap race. This 3.83km circuit, in operation since 2003, also shares its 880 acre property with the Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum, making it an ideal race to visit if you're a fan of vintage bikes and cars. The IndyCar series has made an annual visit to the circuit since back in 2010, and in April this year it was Takuma Sato who took the win, and who will be crowned victor tonight. Welcome to the Performance Ensuring coverage of tonight's race. My name is Ryan Jones. We've got Matt Hunter producing this race for you, and alongside me in the booth is Edward Foster.
G'day everyone.
Edward, it's time for round 2. We've got another smallish shorter field tonight, but it looks like the field is a bit closer together for this race. What are your expectations for this one tonight?
Well, hopefully we're going to see, we're not going to see quantity, so hopefully what we see is quality. The times do look to be quite close together. Gary Hamilton does have a fairly sizable gap there at the top of qualifying at the moment, but the remainder of the field behind him covered by just over 2 seconds, actually, all the way down from second place James Foster to Bruce Barnes down there, rounding out the field in 13th. So hopefully, if they're able to stay that close on race pace as well, we should get a few battles to watch.
Yeah, hopefully, and if we do, it should be a good race. Barber Motorsport Park does offer not too many passing opportunities from what I've seen. You've got obviously the big stop down at turn 1 and down the end of the back straight, but there's a lot of fast flowing corners too on this track, which makes it very difficult to make an overtake and can produce a lot of bumper to bumper racing with faster cars unable to pass those slightly slower guys in front of them.
Yeah, especially with open wheelers that, of course, generate so much of the grip from the air flowing over the aerodynamic surfaces of the car. So that can cause a big issue in those fast flowing corners where they really do need the downforce to generate the grip, but of course they're running through the turbulent air left by the car in front. So that's going to be something for these drivers to deal with as well. Of course, to aid overtaking, they've got push to pass available to them, which is going to give them a little bit of extra power. They can use that button 10 times per race. So guys are going to have to, it's going to be a race of judgment rather than just outright speed tonight as well.
And in terms of the strategy for this race, we're thinking it's going to be a 2-stop race, much like the round 1 event at Coda. A fuel of about 21 to 22 laps is what we've been told. So expect it to be absolutely nowhere near that in the actual race. But if you get a 2-stop race, it should open up a few different strategy options as well. Maybe a bit of an undercut, overcut. See what they can do with this one.
Well, there is. So, we're a 54-lap race. You can do 22 laps on 1 tank of fuel, obviously 44 laps on 2 tanks of fuel. So that only means that you're going to need half a tank to get home. So there's plenty of room for these guys to actually play around with their strategy. Guys who are caught up in traffic might elect to pit a bit early. After, say, 10 laps or so, that fuel window is going to open and it'll be an easy 2-stopper for them from there. So we may see a few guys, especially guys from deep within the pack, rolling into the pit lane after the first 10 laps or so, playing a bit of a move to hopefully pay off for them later on in the race.
Certainly going to be interesting to see. And there's a disclaimer for anyone who watches this race. Edward and I are both sick as a dog tonight, so if we seem a bit flat, that's why. But we'll do our best to bring you a nice, exciting broadcast as always. But in terms of qualifying, we've got about 40 seconds left before the checkered flag falls on the session. And it's Gary Hamilton by 6 cents per second to James Foster, who is the only other man that's managed to pull off a 1 minute 6. He's got a 1 minute 6.956 in second there. And Ashton Crowder has ventured over to the IndyCar scene, and he sits in 3rd place. I'm interested to see how he runs tonight. Obviously, we all know how dominant he is in NASCAR on the NASCARs. Interested to see how he can translate onto the open wheelers.
Yeah, well, of course, it is an entirely different skill, isn't it? These are very, very, very different race cars to a big, heavy stock car. Ashton's one of the world's best in a stock car, so yeah, he seems reasonably competitive in these too. At the end of the day, if you can drive a car, you can drive a car, although you may specialise in one area more than another. So see how he'll go from row 2.
Just trying to have a look. We've got a minute 30 now of the after the checkered flag for drivers to complete any laps they started before that flag flew. It looks like Michael Scullock might be on a lap, and he might possibly be the only person actually still out on track, Michael Scullock. So we watch him now coming around the back part of the circuit. My goal for tonight, Edward, is to learn what all these corners are because uh, I have had Barber sitting in my iRacing account for quite some time, but it's never been a track I've actually gone to or spectated before. So it's not normally a track that's used by a great variety of series. Obviously, IndyCar series uses it every year, but other than that, I don't see it too often. Do you?
No, I certainly don't. I mean, like you, it's a circuit that I've had access to for a while, but I've never done a race here. I've never watched a race here. I've never watched a real life race here either. So it's all new to me.
Well, at least we can struggle in this one together. Another disclaimer for tonight's race: you may see my name pop up in the timing pages. That is because I'm an idiot and joined the session as a driver instead of a spectator. So just to put rest to any questions that may arise from that one. But that does look like we've got our qualifying order set. So, Edward, do you want to run us through the grid for this one?
Yeah, certainly can. So as mentioned, we got Gary Hamilton on the front row with James Foster. That didn't change from when we ran through it before. Ashton Crowder, Chris Purnell, that's row 2. Michael Aaron Smith and Josh Carroll Walden, 3 names each. They're on row 3. Dave Douglas, Michael Skurlock on row 4, Mirko Doutnak and Mick Boyst down there row 5, row 6, Matthew Clute and Fitzroy Beaumont. And on the 7th row, all on his own, Bruce Barnes rounding out the field. 13 drivers tonight.
13 drivers, 13 people that could take a victory, but also 13 people that could ruin it for someone else out on track. You make a mistake, there's grass, and then there's walls. There's not too much runoff on this track. You know, we see other tracks, Circuit of the Americas, huge amount of runoff, ridiculous amount of runoff. But here in Barber, a bit of an undulating track, but a bit of a mistake, you're off into that grass, and what you'll find is that very quickly, once you touch that grass, it's going to suck you right into that wall.
Yeah, it's a really good old school circuit, this one, actually, grass around it and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's going to punish errors, and that's one of the things that worldwide we want to see more of in motorsport, is tracks that actually do punish errors rather than just having nice wide tarmac runoff that you can go onto. So, yeah, these guys are really going to have to be on their toes. Precision is going to be absolutely key for them.
What are your thoughts then? Who do you think is going to win this race? Is Hamilton going to make it back-to-back wins to open up the iCart series, or is someone else going to be able to stop maybe Foster or Crowder or maybe Purnell?
I think based on qualifying, you'd have to say that Hamilton's looking like he's got a bit of margin and pace over everyone else. I think, barring any misfortune for him, the main battle's going to be over second. I think that Foster, Crowder, Purnell, maybe Michael Aaron Smith or Josh Carroll Walden could get their noses in there as well. Of course, qualifying pace isn't always indicative of race pace, but at the moment, from what we've seen, your top practice as well. If I had to put money on it, I'd say Hamilton. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Hamilton's probably quite a safe bet, and for the sake of the race, I'm going to put my money on Chris Purnell, series owner, a lot of experience in the car, knows how to handle them, and I think he might be able to come through the pack today. But you touched on it there that qualifying pace is something that is completely different to race pace. And I can say that from experience. We've seen in a few NASCAR races, I've seen them have decent qualifying pace, and then I'm about as slow as Edward in the race, which is not fantastic. It's a skill, isn't it? To be able to be fast in qualifying, but then translate that into being fast for 54 laps.
Well, they're related skills, but they're separate skills, aren't they? Because over a long run, you're actually looking after the car, looking after the tyres, and really focusing on just doing everything right. You're not really pushing to that 11 tenths that you are in qualifying, trying to pull out the best lap possible. And that's obviously because consistency is key over these longer races. And of course, in qualifying, if you do spin off, you can drive it back to the pits, throw a new set of tyres at it, and go again. In a race, you spin off, you've lost the race. So the drivers do have that to contend with as well. So yeah, definitely related but separate skills, I think.
They certainly are. It's certainly difficult to get right. And I'm just having a look at the field. We had some issues with this last race, all those identically painted Allusion cars. And just to make it even more difficult for everyone at home today and for us up here in the booth, we have another white car lining up in the field, and that's Matthew Clowett. He's got purple highlights on his car. But from the good old blimp cam, they all look like the same damn car.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, like it wasn't difficult enough already. But yeah, Matthew Clute, not part of that Allusion team, driving for Middle Finger Racing, and I'm fairly sure that he's the only Middle Finger Racing car out here tonight.
15 corners. If you're American, you want to count corners weirdly on this circuit. 16 if you're a normal person like the rest of us. They're going to be coming around into the turn 11 now. Turn 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all pretty close together. We've got two big straights on this track. Obviously, you come out of turn 15, let's call it, down the main straight, and then you head down to that left-right sort of sweeping turn 2 corner. And then the back straight, come out of turn 10, and then into turn 11. That's probably your two best passing opportunities, as I touched on earlier in this race. And we'll be looking out for those spots for the drivers to make some moves today as the pace car peels off into that pit lane on the left-hand side of the exit of turn 14, waiting for Hamilton to take the green flag in a second. Onto the main straight, the field's going to bunch up, the green flag's going to wave, and we're racing, and there's a stack up back in the pack, and that's not good news for the other drivers. It looks like a couple of Allusion cars. Matthew Clute got a bit involved as there's almost contact, and there's cars going around in the background and cars going around at the front of the field. At turn number 2, there's multiple guys going around. I'm not quite sure who they are. But out front,
yeah, it was an awkward
Hamilton.
start. Sorry to talk over you. It was an awkward start. That's actually Purnell that's gone around there at the start. He's dropped all the way to the back of the field. It's difficult to see what happened there. I think that there was a car on the inside. I think it might have been Dave Douglas actually. Sort of took advantage of that ordinary start that a lot of people made and just tagged the back of Purnell, which set Purnell off onto the grass, and he's gone straight to the scene of the accident, unfortunately. So he's going to have to drive his way back up from the very, very back of the field.
Yeah, it looks like we've got Michael Skurlock, Chris Purnell, and Matthew Clute all now at the back of that pack, so they've had disastrous starts to this race. Not how you want to start a long race like this, because when the entire race playing catch-up. The rest of the field is now single file, being led by Gary Hamilton, who's got James Foster for quite close company in behind him for second place. Ashton Crowder's been able to retain third place out of all of that. And it's Dave Douglas under huge pressure now from Michael Aaron Smith. He's going to look down to the inside, going down the main straight, across the start-finish stripe, but he's going to have the inside for turn number 1. He's going to complete that move relatively easily. And it's Joshua Carr-Warden in behind them.
Yeah, Dave was a bit out of position, wasn't he, after getting that awesome start, taking advantage of that really awkward start people had bunching up, and he was just able to shoot down the inside. But now, of course, that's left him probably just up ahead as he goes to actually make a bit of a move down the inside of Michael Aaron Smith. Doesn't quite get that done. That's going to put him under pressure from Josh Carroll-Walden there as well. But he's a lot of guys who out-qualified him are now behind him. So he's got a, like we say, if the race pace is similar to the qualifying pace, he's going to have be doing a lot of defending, at least in the initial stages, I think.
Yeah, Douglas is an experienced racer. I think we all know that for sure, and I don't think he's going to be feeling too under pressure here trying to defend this one. He certainly knows how to get those defensive moves out. Certainly in NASCAR at least, whether he can do that in an IndyCar, we'll find out. Just in behind Walden is Mirko Dornak. He's had a decent start. He's got Fitzroy Beaumont in behind him. Beaumont didn't have a fantastic opening race of the season. He struggled a bit with the setup, I think, and finished quite a way down the order. So he'll be happy he's up in 8th place at the moment at the start of this one, right on the back of the train for 5th place.
Of course, this series also using the higher downforce package here. So that has made the cars a little bit grippier through the turns and may suit some drivers better than others as well. And it could well be that Beaumont is one of those guys that actually prefers a high downforce car. But as we say that, we've got Josh Carroll-Walden having a look down the inside of Dave Douglas. Dave tries to hang on around the outside there. Does so, but puts a wheel on the grass and then going to be side by side down the next straight. I think Dave should have the inside. Douglas there, yeah, has got the inside. Josh Carroll-Walden having to yield and almost just coming under threat there from Mirko Dornak, who's got, as we mentioned, Beaumont for close company there as well. So a little bit of a train behind Douglas at the moment.
It looked for a second that Douglas is going to roll over and let Carroll-Walden go by on the inside there. But he set that up well to get a good run out of the corner and into turn number 7, into the turn number 7 complex, and yeah, held on. But oh no, Beaumont's gone around. I put the curse on him. He's rolling multiple times. That's a monumental crash for Fitzroy Beaumont. Up and over and over and over and over he goes. iRacing physics will allow him to continue on driving, but I dare say it's going to be race on for him.
That's a remarkable accident. He seems to have got it wrong when he is just as he crested the hill, which sort of suggests that the car got light as he got on the brakes or something, but a car with that much downforce shouldn't get overly light. So and then tumbling over and over and over again. It's certainly, I hope he doesn't race in VR, because that would have scrambled his brain absolutely brilliantly, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's putting me off VR. I don't ever want to have to experience that washing machine effect. So that's a shame for Fitzroy Beaumont. He's going to be down the order after that one. It's still Douglas leading from Walton and Dortmund though for the battle for V5, and Michael Skurlock and Chris Purnell are working their way back up to the front. Purnell has got by Skurlock and has really driven away from him. It was 2 seconds of that fight on Skurlock on that last lap. Not sure whether Michael's made a mistake. Just having a look at his lap times, it doesn't appear so. So Skurlock struggling for pace, maybe a bit of damage on his car, but Chris Purnell is roaring up into this battle for 5th place in a second.
How's he done that? He was miles behind him. He was facing the wrong way, and he's right on the back of Mirko now. So that's a remarkable turnaround. He's sort of been lapping around about, as you say, a second a lap faster, but I thought he lost a lot more than that spinning off into the gravel. So I'm quite surprised, actually.
Maybe a bit of admin special advantage, maybe a bit of extra horsepower there for being the series creator, maybe? No?
Let's not start rumours like that. Some people take it seriously.
No. We just want to be clear, there are no advantages whatsoever out here in this field. Unless you're
actually impossible to do. Yeah, but Gary Hamilton, as you say, out there in the lead, 1.8 seconds ahead of James Foster at the moment after 5 laps. So certainly not having the pace advantage that he had in the last race. They're still very much in the same camera shot, the 2 leaders, but it does look as though Hamilton's just doing it very, very comfortably. Having a little bit of a look at Foster's case, taking a lot of curb on a couple of occasions there, but he looks moderately comfortable as well, if not quite as comfortable as Hamilton there out the front, and they're just dropping Crowder, who's in 3rd place, and he's 7 seconds off the lead now, and of course most of the pack starting to spread out a little bit now, actually.
Just watch Mirko Dornak pull over on the main straight to the inside and let his team boss go by. So, team play there for Allusion Motorsports. Purnell will take that spot away from Mirko Dornak. And now it's going to be the blowtorch being applied from Chris Purnell to the back of Carol Walden.
Advantages of being the boss, hey? But I don't think that Josh Carroll-Walden and Dave Douglas are going to be that kind to him. I think certainly Josh Carroll-Walden, maybe Dave will be. But yeah, Josh Carroll-Walden's not going to want to lose that position. But Purnell's just coming up such a head of steam now. I don't know if he blames, I haven't heard anything on the radio, but I don't know if he's blaming Dave Douglas for that first corner incident there. He certainly, they went in there side by side, and it did look as though Dave took a bit more track than perhaps Purnell was expecting. But in any event, it'll be interesting to see what happens when those two get back together. But of course, he's got Carroll-Walden to get past first, and I can guarantee you he'll be in no mood to yield the way that Dortmund just did.
No, none whatsoever. Just looking at the lap times for that one. An 8.6 for Purnell, a 9.3 for Walden, and a 9.2 for Douglas. So again, about 6 or 7 tenths per second quicker on that lap. He was a second quicker on the previous lap. So just the closer he gets to the back of the car in front, the more that aero understeer starts to introduce itself. And the more Purnell will struggle to have quite as big of an advantage over the 2 cars in front, which does make it a little bit harder to make an overtake.
Yeah, Douglas actually ran very wide there on that last left-hander, has allowed Carroll-Walden to get right up into his slipstream again. But you sort of notice that Purnell's got up behind this, forming the third one of this trio now, and he hasn't really. He's certainly not right underneath Carroll-Walden's gearbox, is he? You know, he's almost sort of hit a little bit of an aerodynamic wall there. So we'll see what he's able to do, how much he's taken out of his car and his tyres and everything like that, getting back up there. But, we're on lap 7 now, and, the pit window opens at lap 10. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, at the very least, Chris Purnell, if not Josh Carroll-Walden as well, dive off into the pits and try and get a bit of an undercut, run a reverse strategy.
It's certainly something that we'll be thinking about at this stage of the race. But you talk about that sort of aero wall he's hit, and there's a bit of a trade-off that you have, isn't it? You apply that high downforce setup to the car, make it a bit easier to drive for these drivers, but it also creates a bit more difficulty in overtaking because there's a lot more downforce being generated from these cars, and that understeer is even more prevalent behind someone else as opposed to maybe a low downforce setup.
Yeah, but it punches a bigger hole in the air down the straights as well, which means the straight line slipstream is going to be more powerful, and we've seen that in NASCAR with the higher downforce package cars are running at the moment. The draft along the straights is that much more powerful, but when you get into a turn, especially a high-speed turn, it's that much worse. So it sort of balances itself out to a degree, but of course, being worse in the corners is what takes takes the life out of your tyres as well. So, and Dave Douglas just looks to be a little bit of a cork in a bottle at the moment in front of these guys. Carol Walden's sort of looking this way and that, but he's left himself a little bit vulnerable to Purnell, who'll be on the push to pass, I'm fairly sure, trying to make a move. He gets down there under brakes and just slips straight down the inside of Josh Carroll Walden. And now Dave Douglas is the last one that stands between Purnell and a nice cushion of free air.
Yeah, that was a slick-looking move for Chris Purnell there. Maybe he'll try and execute the exact same maneuver on Dave Douglas on the next lap. If he's smart, he probably will try to do that. But I was just looking as that was happening at the lap times from Hamilton and from James Foster.
We've had one go off. Sorry to cut you off. We just had one go off the track. Mirko Doubtnack's gone around and fallen back behind, I believe his teammate. I think he's fallen back behind Mick Boyce, perhaps, as well. So right to the back of the field, unfortunately, for Mirko, just on the power a bit early there.
Yeah, that's a big shame for Mirko there. And yeah, as I was just touching on the lap times, Foster put in 2 laps in a row of a 7-1, and just on this up there, a 7-3. Compared to Hamilton in front of him, put in on the same laps at 7-3, 7-4, and now 7-1. So that gap has come down by a couple of tenths from Hamilton to Foster. Hopefully, for Foster's sake, he's able to keep closing that gap up and put a bit of a show on for the race leaders. There's a move there from Chris Purnell on Dave Douglas into turn 1. The same move he pulled on Carroll Walden, and it's worked a treat for him. He's got 2 spots in that corner.
Yeah, he has, and you would see just as he sort of chopped across the nose of Dave Douglas there, it's taken all the air away across of Douglas's car, and you saw the whole front end of Douglas's car suddenly lose grip and wash out to the outside. So if you need any further, I guess, illustration of what the dirty air does, there you have it. But Purnell definitely clear now, and I'm fairly confident that he's going to put a gap on these guys pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's definitely got the pace over them. Just looking ahead to Ashton Crowder in 3rd place. He's done 8-9 in the last lap. He might be able to get to Crowder by the end of this race, certainly in a few laps' time, if he can continue to show that pace he was showing before he caught those 2 cars. Be keeping a keen eye on that one. And
the gap to the lead down to 1.9 seconds now as well. So Foster's actually closed that gap up. As you mentioned, looking at the lap times earlier on, that Foster had put in a couple of hot ones. And he's certainly keeping Hamilton in view, isn't he? Hamilton won the last race by around about 40 seconds. Unless Foster makes a mistake and a few other people behind besides make mistakes, I can't see Hamilton getting that kind of gap today. It looks as though Foster's got enough pace there to, at the very least, keep him honest. And I'd love to see a battle for the win between the two of them.
Well, Edward, I would hazard a guess you probably know Edward quite well. Would you say
Edward quite well? It's me.
Oh, no. I would hazard a guess you'd probably know James quite well. God damn it.
Not as well as I know Edward.
Not as well as you know Edward? No, I would hope not. Is James the sort of person that's liable to fall victim to a bit of pressure trying to chase down Hamilton, or is he going to thrive under that challenge?
No, I think he's certainly putting a lot of effort into his open wheeler racing at the moment. He's always been... he gained an I rating of, I'm not sure what Hamilton's I rating is, but James used to race a lot of GT3, got his I rating up to around about 6,000 at one point, so certainly no slouch, and he's really turning his attention to open wheelers at the moment, just finding them to be a new challenge and one that he's actually quite enjoying. So I think he'll be enjoying the fact that at this stage in the race he can still see Hamilton, because last race was just a drubbing. Hamilton disappeared off. So having nobody in his rear view mirrors and still being able to see Hamilton up there, knowing that he's not able to really increase that gap at this stage, and he's able to run with him, will give him encouragement. So I don't know that he's expecting to beat him, but you can guarantee he's going to give it all he's got. Absolutely.
Well, that's good to hear. I've just seen Mirko Dornack just gave Matthew Clowett a big old punt coming down around turn number 5 and sent him around. That's unfortunate for Clowett there. He was making a recovery, and it looks like Dornack has actually redressed the position. So a bit of a costly error there for Dornack, and it cost both those drivers a fair chunk of time.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say that Dortmund might be getting an angry Facebook message later on. But in any event, it looks as though they've redressed that and they're going to carry on. They're both sort of a bit further down towards the back of the field now, anyway, unfortunately for them. But, now carrying a little bit of damage into the bargain.
Back with the battle for the lead. James Foster has closed the gap back up. Hamilton, the gap seems to be seesawing a bit at the moment. Hamilton's putting in a fast one, but he's not able to do it lap after lap. He does a fast lap and a slow lap and a fast lap and a slow lap. His slow laps are still faster than the entirety of the rest of the field, barring Foster. But regardless, Foster is just hanging there. He's doing what he needs to do at the moment, and maybe just trying to look after his stuff a bit, try and save a bit of fuel, maybe try and work a bit of a strategy play into this one.
Yeah, I think so. And let's have a look because Hamilton's actually catching up on the lapped car of Mick Boyce at the moment. And it looks as though Boyce is carrying a lot of damage, but he's certainly aware that Hamilton's there and he's given him a lot of space and no harm done there whatsoever. But they're into the back markers now. So lap traffic is going to be a feature for these leaders for the rest of the race.
And on a track road, it's so hard to pass. If you catch two lapped cars that are battling for position, you may find yourself getting balked quite substantially as they pick their way through each other. Maybe don't even realize you're behind them, and that can create issues, and that is a product of road racing. You've got blue flags in road racing, but if you're battling for position, it's not that simple to get the move done, unfortunately, sometimes.
No, and of course the back markers running their own race, aren't they? You know, everyone's running their own race out there. So Boyce is just sitting there in front of Foster at the moment. He's caught him at a bit of an awkward spot. So actually runs right out onto the grass to give Foster that spot there. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but he's cost himself a lot of time doing that. But he's coming into the pits now anyway, Boyce. So I think he probably needs to get some of that damage fixed. And as they come across the line, the gap's out to 2.3 seconds. So that's actually cost James 0.4 through that particular section of lapping Mick Boyce. So he won't be overly pleased with that, having worked so hard. It's actually out to 2.7 now. So that's cost him a huge amount of time, nearly a second.
Yeah, it's a big shame. You won't be chatty about that. Ashton Crowder and Chris Parnell, that gap is still sitting at about 4 seconds. They're lapping about the same as each other on the lap, so they're not. It is Ashton, Chris Parnell will lead advantage, and 8-0 for the last 5 laps of Chris Parnell. By comparison, Ashton Crowder lapping 8-2, 8-0, 8-5, 8-9. So yeah, substantially faster there for Chris Parnell. He should be able to catch him pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, he had, I'd say, looking back at practice, you'd say he definitely had top 3 pace, Chris Burnell. You'd say that he had round about the pace of Foster, if not the outright pace of Hamilton. So you'd expect him to kind of work his way back up to that area. But how much? I mean, he's more than 20 seconds behind second place James Foster. So whether he's able to make that back in the laps remaining remains to be seen. I think it's a bit of a big ask, but I think third place still definitely on for Purnell.
I think, yes, barring that lap 1 mistake, we would have seen Purnell up in this battle with Hamilton and with James Foster. Unfortunately, that mistake is going to cost him a chance of that one. With no safety cars coming in this race, we know that for sure. Ashton Crowder will be his ultimate target for this one, it looks like. Looking back at the pack, there's not too many battles going on. They're a lot closer than they were at Circle of the Americas, which is good to see. It's still Dave Douglas ahead of Carol Ward. He still can't find a way past him. And while they're doing this, Michael Skurlock and Michael Aaron Smith are starting to roar up onto the back of them.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier on about someone taking the early pit stop, weren't we? Oh, Josh Carroll Walden's just gone around, actually. He's just looped that car under power. Seems to be the thing with this Indy car, in that not many people are out braking themselves or anything like that. It's when you put the power down that you can find yourself in a little bit of trouble, and that happened to Carroll Walden there. And I was just going to say that I was quite surprised that Carroll Walden had not elected to take an early pit stop. If he was unable to do anything about Dave Douglas in front of him, an alternate strategy might have provided that opportunity for him to actually win that position at the end of the day. But he certainly cost himself a lot there. I guess we'll get a chance now that he's in clean air to see what his ultimate pace is. But of course, he sacrificed track position to, I believe, Skurlock, Smith, and possibly Doutnack as well. No, I think it's actually just the two that he's lost position to.
Well, Gary Hamilton has just come in, made his pit stop, and he's now back out on track, coming out of turn number 2, and he's in behind Chris Purnell. So we'll see how much of an advantage this does give Hamilton, whether Chris Purnell might opt to sort of just try and hold Hamilton up here. They're not fighting for position in terms of the grand scheme of things. Maybe a bit of pride for Purnell, won't want to let him go too easily.
Yeah, certainly. I think that Purnell is going to hold Hamilton back as much as he possibly can, because it makes no sense for him to make Hamilton's life easy. He may, this could cause Hamilton to panic, run off the track, have a spin, and bring Purnell right back into play. So there's absolutely no reason for Purnell to do anything but hold Hamilton up. So I'm not sure if Gary Hamilton runs with any kind of crew chief or anything like that, sort of helping him to decide his strategies as Purnell goes off into the pits. But if so, they messed up there because they've released him right behind Chris Purnell, which will have cost him a little bit of time.
Yeah, so that pit stop now for Chris Purnell coming. James Foster elected to stay out a extra lap at least. He's still out on track now. Had around 3 turn number 10, I think. And Ashton Crowder's out there too. So Hamilton's now cycled back into third place, 25 seconds off the lead of the race. So he should cycle back into that lead, barring mistakes. Now, is there anything that Foster could do here to pull a strategy and get ahead and get track position?
Yes, there is. He needs to pit right now, which he hasn't done, because there's no way for him to know that Gary Hamilton's been held up while he came out of the pits there, getting held up behind Purnell. But Hamilton has had the slightly superior pace to Foster. I think if Hamilton really pushes, he's going to have a few. Oh, hang on. We just heard that Chris Purnell's actually spun out of the pits as well. So that's he's done a lot of damage to that car. So that is going to put him well and truly out of contention. And once again, it was done on the throttle on cold tyres, which, if you remember back, is exactly what he did at COTA in the first round. So he's going to be more than annoyed at that, I think. But just going back to the Foster-Hamilton thing, Hamilton did get held up on his way out of the pits, and we expect Hamilton to have marginally better pace than Foster over the course of the race, especially if he pushes. So it's not going to get any better than this for Foster, so he needs to get into pits right now.
So he does, and there's a few parallels that can be drawn back to the race. One, obviously, Chris Purnell, that spin after the first pit stop, cold tyres. And also our first official retirement of the race is, again, Matthew Clowett. He's retired from the session. Fitzroy Beaumont classed behind him, 15 laps down, but he is still in the session, trying to get those damage repaired, so that's good to see. But we have lost one. We've lost Matthew Clowett.
Yeah, that's a fairly unenviable record for him as well, isn't it? Came into the series probably with better expectations than being the first retirement in both of the opening races, but unfortunately that's the way it's gone, and we can only wish him better luck for the next rounds. But I'm just watching Foster come through now, just finishing off his lap. He's elected not to pit once again. I really think this is a mistake from him to be staying out now. He's obviously trying to extend the gap over Hamilton on lighter fuel, which is possibly a strategy, and we're just going to have to keep an eye on the times to see if that's actually working for him. Of course, Hamilton's going to be on full fuel, Foster's going to be on lighter fuel now, having not come into the pits. But is it a gamble that's going to pay off for him? In his position, with all the information that we can see up here broadcasting the race, I think it would have been good to pit the lap after Hamilton for him. But it's he's one in the driver's seat, and he's going to make that.
Something I just noticed too, Carrot Warden came in to make his pit stop, locked up the brakes and nosed it straight into the wall, trying to get into the pit lane. So that's a big mistake for Walden, and that's going to cost him a lot of time, give him some damage as well. And that's going to drop him out of the battle for any positions he was fighting for. As Mick Boyce is now retired from the race as well, so a few retirements starting to trickle into the timings now.
Yeah, there's a lot of wounded there, isn't there? And a lot of these guys are guys who race, sort of either V8 supercars or NASCARs and things like that most of the time. And those cars are able to take a lot more punishment than these highly strung Indy cars that are very, very sensitive to these things. So Josh Carroll-Walden's on his way out of the pits. He's had a new front wing put onto that. Remains to be seen if he's got any bent steering or anything like that. I can tell you that driving one of these with bent steering is no fun at all. But he's back out of the pits and on his way with a fresh nose on that. So he'll continue on.
So Foster's still on track. So what I'm going to take a guess at here is that in the Foster family, it was you that got the brains and Foster that got the driving talent. Is that what? And James that got the driving talent. Is that right?
I've got absolutely no idea, mate. No idea. I do know that James did get very, very quick when he started online racing against a gentleman by the name of Paul, who They're still mates today, actually, but Paul he doesn't do a lot of iRacing, but he does a lot of other sims, and he is world record pace in absolutely everything that he touches. And James learned a lot of tips off of him, so he's been very, very quick since that point, especially on the road courses.
I'm just trying to pick up on something here. Foster has pitted. We've completely missed that. Foster has actually made his pit stop, and he's going to cycle back out to 4.4 seconds behind Gary Hamilton. So that gap has opened back up, and it's going to be interesting to see now whether the Foster is able to close that gap up on the fresher tyres now, whether the overcut's going to work.
Yeah, we totally missed it, didn't we? It didn't really work for him staying out. If you remember when they pitted, they were only about 2.5 seconds apart, and that's blown out to 4.4 through that cycle of pit stops. So the staying out the extra laps has not worked. The overcut has not worked. The undercut is the way to go, it seems. And a little bit of traffic that Foster's caught there hasn't helped him either. But the race isn't over. It's only 4.5 seconds. So we may yet get that battle for the lead that we want to see. But these two, really the class of the field, they've cleared out on absolutely everybody else. There's nobody else within touching distance of those top two, with Purnell having dropped out. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen a bit more of Crowder, just given his pedigree to be up there with these other guys. But of course, different car, different circuit to the ones he's used to driving. And I'm sure if he sticks around in this series, he will definitely figure out a way to get up there as well.
It could be a case of, Crowder's not quite up to speed yet, or maybe Crowder, a bit of a one-trick pony. He's a noble racer, and that's it, maybe?
Oh, I find that very difficult to believe, but give him some time. Give him some time, it'll be fine.
I'm sure he'll get up there for sure. We've had a change of position for P number 4. Michael Aaron Smith has got up there ahead of Dave Douglas. Now, Smith isn't a driver we've seen before in NASCAR competition or iCart competition, so that's good to see me face up there, up into the top 5 and putting pay to one of the most experienced drivers in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been impressive, hasn't he? He qualified very well. He was fast all the way through practice as well. If lacking a little bit to the leaders, the absolute leaders, but there's no disgrace in that, given the gap that they've managed to pull over the rest of the field. But he was top 5 throughout practice, qualified in 5th position as well. And it's no surprise to see him still running up there well. And he hasn't really made any mistakes worth the name either. We haven't seen him running wide, putting tyres on the grass, making mistakes, spins, anything like that. He's just been knocking out those lap times, passing people when he's had to be, and he's driving a really strong race. So I hope that he manages to finish it off and bring it home, because it'll be a fantastic first couple of races for him.
Yeah, for sure. 1 second. While we've got a bit of a lull going on in this race, what we're going to do is we're going to drag Chris Purnell up here, because I have been informed that Chris Purnell is available for a chat. He's 4 laps down in this race. He's pretty much parked the car up, so we're going to grab Chris Purnell up here and see what Purnell has to say about how the track's handling.
Sounds good.
Good evening, Chris Purnell.
How are ya?
We're not bad. We're having a little bit of fun watching this race out there. A bit of a shame to see you 4 laps down. What's happening out there, mate?
I got a bit of contact on the first lap into turn 1 by somebody being a little bit aggressive. And I flicked around and sort of went to the back of the field. And I had pretty good pace, so I come back through pretty quick. And then, silly me, decided to get on the throttle too hard out of pit exit, hit the wall and wrecked the...
Well, we've seen that 2 races in a row now, Chris. Do you think it might be time for you to practice your pit exits a bit more?
It may do. I get a little bit too excited when I leave. I think I'm going to make ground, and it hasn't worked for me so far.
Yeah, just a bit more careful on that throttle, I think, and you'll be right. We're seeing the battle unfold between Hamilton and Foster. 5 seconds between them. Foster's got a bit of pace that keeps flashing up every now and then. He'll do a lap that's quicker than Hamilton. From what you're sitting on from where you've been out there, you've driven the track in this race. Is it a tough track to drive at the moment, or is the track pretty simple, pretty nice and grippy out there, or is it a case of it's really hot and these fluctuations we're seeing in lap times is a case of that?
Yeah, it was weird because in practice the car felt really hooked up, but then when we got into quali, I really had an issue with the front. Just couldn't get the thing to grip into the track, and it feels like as the sort of day goes on, it's getting harder and harder. Like I couldn't even get into the sevens like before, where I was comfortably in the sixes at the start of the session. So it's definitely becoming harder to get the most out of the car. So I can see why they're sort of struggling a little bit with the pace at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting race so far. You're still in the pit, so you gonna try and get back out there once you've got some repaired damage, or are you done for this?
No, I'm done for the day. The crew chief has told me that we've got too much damage and I'm officially out. So, yeah, that's me done. But from what it looks like, I'll finish 10th. So I'll still score a point for the championship. But, yeah, not the race I was hoping for.
Well, there you have it. We've got 3 official retirements from this race. The 2 Allusion boys. On a day for Allusion, Chris Bennell and Nick Boyst. 10th and 11th, and Matthew Cloyd again, first tiree back in P12. And Fitzroy Beaumont, we're still unsure whether he's actually retired from this race or whether he's still repairing any damage. I can tell you by lap 54, we will know what is happening with Fitzroy Beaumont. Hopefully for his sake, get out there. Maybe he's got about 2 more laps he has up his sleeve before he can get back out there and overtake Chris Pennell for P10 if he does every lap from here on in. So keep an eye on that one for you. But out front, it's still Hamilton Foster, and thank you for the insight into the race so far, Chris. Edward, is there any questions you've got for Chris?
I do. Just regarding that first lap contact, it looked as though the start was a little bit awkward, which is what gave, I think it was Dave Douglas, the opportunity to really try and overtake a big block of you at once. What was actually going on that start? Did you have any opinion on it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I had a quick look after I got out of the car, and it kind of looked like James boggled a little bit, or maybe missed a shift at the very beginning of it, or I'm not really sure if Hamilton sort of backed the pack up and then sort of lunged and then not quite went fully. I don't know. It was everybody checked up quite a little bit, so it was interesting, and it felt like there was a little bit of a gap from sort of fifth backwards, and they sort of lunge forward as well at the same time. So it was a little bit congested in there, but it's Barber, and it is quite a tricky little start zone because you come out of that corner a little bit funny as well, and then into turn one you're pretty flat out.
Yeah, and of course it's were those 2 team cars coming together there at the start, yourself or?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just just one of them things. Everybody was sort of backed up a little bit, and it just sort of happened like.
Right, and of course, as the person who runs this series as well, you've done all of the behind the scenes work, putting all this together, putting together the racing that we're seeing out there on the track at the moment. What's your initial impressions? We're sort of halfway through the second race now. The championship's sort of got those first race jitters out of the way. We're in its stride. What are your initial impressions and your hopes for the future?
Yeah, so I'm pretty impressed with the guys that have signed up and attended both races. They're pretty committed, and it seems like the gap or the deficit between the drivers has really closed up from round 1 to round 2. I think there was only 3 seconds across the whole field tonight, so that's pretty exciting to know that it's a little bit more competitive than it was at Coda. I really thought the open qualifying worked quite well tonight as well. It gave a little bit more of a opportunity for guys that maybe can't get one lap together to sort of put it into a rhythm and get a decent run. Little bit short numbers, a little bit disappointed on that side, but I think as we build it up, I think it will become something a lot better. It's just getting it a bit more noticed out there and making guys realise that it is a good series to run for people that want to learn the IndyCar, but then the guys that also want to win and have decent races in it.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the great things about this series and IndyCar, of course, in real life is the diverse skill set that you need. It's not good enough to just be good on the road courses. You need to be good on the ovals too. And of course, the different types of ovals, the short tracks and the faster ones, and of course the street track at Belle Isle. The champion, we were saying in the first round, that the champion of this series is going to be a truly an all-round driver, and I think that's one of the great things about this particular series. And I think that if the races that we've had anything so far are anything to go by, it's going to have a very, very, very bright future. So well done on that, and commiserations for the result, mate. I hope you do a little bit better next time out.
Cheers, buddy. It's just one of them things. It hasn't been my weekend. I wrecked last night as well, so it's I'll go and reassess my life and go again next week. So thanks, guys. Anyway, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the race, and I'll chat to you.
I'm sure we will. Thanks very much. All right, so that was Chris Purnell. Disappointed, but optimistic, I think.
Yeah, not a fantastic result for Chris Purnell there. Only probably does want to go back and reassess those pit exits, because becoming a bit of an Achilles heel for Chris Purnell. That a bit like Jason Martin, his pit stops in Anscar, is that one thing that just brings you unstuck. A bit like me and my long run pace as well.
Look, it's one of those things as well, and I can tell you from experience, like Chris has got a lot on his plate as far as running the series as well, because it's one thing to show up into a series and be able to focus entirely on your own driving, but when you're also performing an admin role, you're hosting the races, you're sort of running everything, you're making sure people are conforming to the rules and everything, it does take your attention away from the focus that you need to have in terms of just driving the thing. And you think it doesn't, but it really, really does. So that's something that he's going to learn in time as well, something that I've been obviously dealing with for quite a while in Ann's car, being one of the guys behind that. So it does take your attention away from just the sole task of your driving, and we might be seeing that a little bit from Purnell, but he'll learn to deal with it. He knows how to drive a car, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah, well, you would certainly know. You do a fantastic job running the NASCAR League. I have to say that. I can't say anything else to you, can I?
You can say what you like, mate. There's no judgment here.
You do a good job running the league, and it's nice to have a well-run NASCAR league running in Australia with a lot of numbers and weekly races. So that's all good fun, and it's going to be very interesting to have an IndyCar league running every fortnight as well. So 2 American series now up and running in Australian sim racing, which is great to see.
Absolutely. And just while we've been talking there, Gary Hamilton has actually lapped Dave Douglas, and Dave Douglas is in 4th place at the moment, and he's 51 seconds ahead of Ashton Crowder, and a lap around here is only about 1 minute 7 or 8 seconds. So it looks as though Hamilton's going to lap everybody but James Foster at this stage, who still remains only 5.2 seconds behind. It was out 5.5 there, but I think James has brought it down a little bit. I think Hamilton hit a bit of traffic there, lapping Dave Douglas, and there's a couple of cars there running line astern behind him as well, so he had a bit of work to do, which could explain that 0.3 of a second turnaround, but definitely those top 2 in a class of their own today.
Yep, untouchable those two, and we've seen Hamilton dominate round 1. We've seen Hamilton almost comfortably lead so far in round 2, with James Foster getting close to it and Purnell having a bit of pace, but a bit further back in the pack. Will we see a bigger battle, a 3-way battle for the lead of round 3, and hopefully that does happen and we keep developing more and more people into the battle for the lead as the rounds go on. And I'm excited to see our next rounds go unfold. In 2 weeks' time, we go to our first oval race of the season at ISM Raceway, I'm going to say. Which should be an interesting race. That one, I think it's 160 laps, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. And obviously, this series is born out of basically a bunch of oval races. Chris Purnell, Allusion Motorsport, they're all heavily involved in the oval side of things. And so we may see, maybe hopefully, an influx of numbers into the series with a bunch of their oval compadres jumping in for the oval portion of the season.
Yeah, potentially. It's of course Purnell and the Allusion guys. They really do divide their attentions between oval racing in the stock cars and also quite a bit of long distance sports car racing. They do as well. So all of those guys very well experienced in both. There are quite a few more oval guys in this series, and of course there are a few road guys there. You know, Gary Hamilton, I'm fairly sure he's pretty much an IndyCar specialist. he probably drives other things, but I've never been aware of him driving other stuff. I always see him pop up whenever there's an IndyCar race going on. So definitely somebody who really does enjoy these cars, and certainly enjoying the way the series is panning out for him so far. Right out there in the lead, 5.9 seconds now the lead over Foster, as Foster's just picked his way through that traffic as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see whether Hamilton gets brought back to the pack, so to speak, the ovals. Obviously, he'd say he's an IndyCar specialist, or certainly knows how to handle himself on an oval in an IndyCar. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting prospect. Whether the very experienced NASCAR stock car oval races can translate onto IndyCar ovals, which are a little bit of a different beast. It's a bit, well, if you go back to the 2018 spec NASCAR, you would say it's a different beast, but 2019 spec is almost the same. It's still flat out. You get to some of the 1.5 mile tracks in IndyCar, it's flat out. You know, Texas, Las Vegas, it's all flat out racing. In the Cup car this year, it's the same thing. But
Yeah,
the aero understeer is a lot more prevalent.
Yeah, definitely. I would expect on the ovals, in terms of, I guess, wondering if Hamilton's going to get pegged back, I would expect to see guys like Skurlock, Purnell, definitely make a gain, maybe Dave Douglas to some extent as well. Really be able to put him under a bit of pressure at the ovals, because they are so experienced on that type of racing, and they know how to deal with aero push on the ovals and things like that. It's a lot different to the way that you deal, as Hamilton pits again, just saying it's a lot different to the way that you deal with aero push on a road course. Totally different technique. So I'd expect those guys to at least make some inroads. But anyway, we've got our leader on pit lane at the moment, and James Foster's just gone through to retake the lead in this race, and we'll see what he actually elects to do, whether he elects to still run that offset strategy from Hamilton, or whether he tries to pit straight away. I don't think it'd make any sense for him to pit straight away now, given the fact there are no real variables in there at all, and he was 6 seconds behind. He's got to try and gain on that lower fuel, but we'll see what he does. But Hamilton in the lane, Hamilton leaving the lane, fairly quick and concise stop for Gary Hamilton. No problems there whatsoever, and I don't expect to see any problems with him rejoining the track, and there isn't any problems there at all. And he rejoins in second place, and now it's just wait for Foster to make his move to the pits as well.
Yeah, new leader in the race. Oh, another lead change in this race. Bit of a false lead change though. Obviously, Foster yet to pit. We'll see whether he makes this pit stop, as you say, or just tries to drag it out as long as he can. Hope Hamilton makes a mistake somewhere back in that pack. Just trying to circle back to the field now, looking for any other battles on the track. And
Foster's in. Sorry to cut you off. Foster has gone straight in, which once again is the exact opposite of what I would have told him to do if we were working on this one together. But as we say, he's in the car and he's elected to come in the very next lap to Hamilton. So we'll just make sure that he manages to get a fairly quick and easy stop. No mistakes, no little errors there. And we'd expect him to probably pop right out around about 6 seconds behind Hamilton as he was before the stop.
Yeah, I think Foster will probably realise that this quest to take the lead of the race is probably going to be a bit far-fetched for him at the moment. So he doesn't need to push too hard on this pit exit and risk spinning it and putting it into the wall, aka Chris Purnell style, which he doesn't do. He makes it out of turn number 2 and he'll continue on.
Yeah.
About 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think he's going to be about 5 or 6 seconds down on Hamilton. He's got I think Skurlock between them as well, but of course Skurlock not on the lead lap of this race, unfortunately for him. But I think right now, I mean, Foster's got absolutely no pressure from behind. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be giving up on the race win just yet, but at some point he's going to have to raise the white flag and bring home the second place points, I think.
We've got Ashton Crowder still in 3rd place. He's having a really lonely race, isn't he, Crowder? He's in the pits. He's out of the pits now. He'll come out of the pit exit lane. Pretty tight pit exit lane, that is, and then it opens up pretty quickly. And he's going to enter onto the track. Right in behind Mirko Dornak. He's got Bruce Barnes in behind him as well. He's not racing either of those guys for position. But yeah, Crowder, very lonely race so far.
Yeah, he has, hasn't he? He's kind of not been fast enough to challenge the front two, but he's been faster than everybody behind him. He possibly had a little bit of something for Chris Purnell if he got the opportunity to have a bit of a dice with him, but he has had a lonely race, exactly right. That's probably the best way to put it, and he's sort of come out now. right up behind one of the Illusion cars there. That's Mirko Dortnack, who, as you mentioned, they're not fighting for position at all. And he's got Josh Carroll Walden right in there behind him. And somewhere along the way, Michael Aaron Smith, who's he's actually just diving into the pit. So I think he's off sequence with these guys.
Yeah, I think Aaron Smith is definitely off sequence. I think he is in 4th place once it all shakes out, though, with Carrot Warden behind him as they both dive into the pits. Carrot Warden does avoid nosing into the pit lane this time, which is a good bonus for him. And the distance of track got a fair bit brighter now. Bit of changing track conditions out there. See whether that plays into the race at any point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not an overly hot track, but it's certainly not a cold track either, 36 degrees Celsius. Normally, when you start getting over 45, that's when the cars really start to suffer in terms of the actual heat, taking away the grip of the track surface. But it's only 36, which is sort of right there in the window of what should be comfortable for them. They could probably do with it being a couple of degrees cooler, but it's only an ambient of 23 with clouds rolling over all the time. So fairly pleasant conditions there. So I don't think it's going to, unless the track temperature shoots right up, I don't think it's going to have too much of an effect.
No, the closest battle on track is the battle for the lead at 6.8 seconds, so the race just starting to peter out a bit now, isn't it? There's not too much happening at the moment.
Well, no, there's not too much happening in terms of overall battles for position. Of course, the pit stops, second pit stops, final pit stops, just cycling through at the moment. We're on lap 39, just about to start lap 40 of 54. So we still have 4 laps to go in this one, which they're easily going to do on the field that they've just taken on the pit stop. So no problems there for any of them. And it's been another race where I'm not sure how Hamilton's going to feel after this one. Of course, he's going to be happy that he's taken the victory, but he's gone from winning a race by 40 odd seconds. If he does win it, I shouldn't stress that. I don't want to commentate his cursing, but if he does go on to win this race, it's only been by a handful of seconds versus at Coda where he was miles ahead of everybody. So I wonder if that's going to make him worry a little bit, whether it's just going to be in the back of his mind that these guys are stiffer competition than he first thought after race 1, but would still be delighted to win 2 out of 2, nonetheless.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can get an interview with him after this race if he's available, and talk to him about both those wins, obviously last week in Coda and this week. If that delta of losing 34 seconds continues, he'll be back in the pack for the next one. But you talk about the field being a bit stiffer competition. Certainly James Foster is, but the rest of the field, he's almost put a lap on everyone.
Yeah, I mean, he has, but let's not forget we've lost Purnell. We saw a couple of other guys who were potentially quick strike trouble earlier on, and we could have definitely had a 3-way fight going on towards the front. Purnell's definitely in that league of guys that would be running right up there at the front. So introducing 3 cars into that kind of pace bracket, it does give you a race, that's for sure. And it's just up to the other guys. Of course, most of these guys, you've got to remember, if you're watching from overseas, it's very difficult in the Australian time zone to actually get an official IndyCar race. So a lot of these guys don't drive this car very much. I'm sure as they drive and as they practice and so on, they're going to get more proficient, and you're going to see them actually start to catch up to the leaders. Certainly, I wouldn't say that anyone's going to shoot up from being last to beating Gary Hamilton by the end of the year, but I would be saying that they would be able to significantly close that gap and maybe put a bit more of a fight on around the back end of the top 5 or something. You should see a number of contenders as they get used to this car getting up around that area for sure.
And hopefully with we can get some more numbers into the series as well, it'll bring about more people that are faster and able to be closer to that gap with Hamilton and put more pressure on him as well. And it's like, we want a bigger field, we want a close battle for the lead, and got a brilliant series going on, because the IndyCar series is fantastic league, and it's a good one to have in Australia. And as you say, it's very hard to find an official race in Australia. We got a good community of sim racers here down under, but I know a few people aren't too keen on the supercar. You quite possibly could be one of them, Edward. But other than the supercar, you can't find official races very often in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the popular stuff, Skippies, GT3s, that type of stuff as well, that does get the fields in our time zone. but certainly on a weeknight evening, you can't even find a NASCAR race to go official normally. So certainly the IndyCar doesn't get a lot of official use over here. But at the same time, it is quite an easy car to drive. I mean, it's hard to pick up and run at Gary Hamilton's pace, for example, but it's not a difficult car to drive, especially when you're running the high downforce package like they're running here. It's reasonably accessible, and it's all fixed setups here. So there's really no reason for anybody who may be watching to be thinking to themselves, "Hey, I wouldn't mind actually getting out there and having a go at this. Come out, see how you go." I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to cost you anything. So, jump in, have a go, and see if you actually enjoy driving the car, because I certainly do. I think for me, it's that and the Porsche 911 Cup are the best cars on iRacing. So it's definitely a favourite of mine. And if I wasn't in the com box, I can guarantee you I'd very much be out there with them.
Oh, what are you doing on the com box then, Edward? Do you want to race? Maybe for the next race, we'll get you into the car and we'll put you in the com box at the same time, and you can do a bit of a live commentary from the track for us.
Well, look, I do that occasionally on the old E53 YouTube channel, so it's certainly not foreign to me. I don't think I'll be talking this much, but you may hear slightly more cursing than I've done so far tonight as well. So something else to keep in mind.
Yeah. Try to keep it here on the YouTube. Once Performance E-Shooting blows up and is a multi-million-dollar company, you don't want to get demonetized, do we? So we'll keep it PG.
Yeah, we'll keep it PG, of course. But speaking of back to the actual race, I suppose, Gary Hamilton has lapped Ashton Crowder now. That means he has lapped everybody but the second place James Foster, who's 8.1 seconds behind now. And I still think that that's pretty much the closest battle on track. Everyone's sort of settled into their respective positions at the moment. There's a few guys sort of running nose to tail. We've got... Actually, probably the closest battle on track at the moment would be Michael Aaron Smith versus Dave Douglas. They've actually, Dave Douglas sitting up there in fourth position at the moment. He's actually got Mirko Dortnak right behind him, who's a lap down. But Michael Aaron Smith right in there behind and just about to lap Mirko Dortnak. And I would say that'd be our closest battle for position on track. There's only really a couple of seconds in it.
Yeah, Aaron Smith is coming up to the back of Douglas. It's about a half a second difference in that last lap in terms of lap times. Oh, that was awkward. Dornak just run right off turn 14 off into the gravel there, but he's going to get back onto the track through turn 15 and go on his way. And across the line, Dave Douglas puts in a 1 minute 9.283, and it's a 1 minute 9.296 Aaron Smith, who did have that lap traffic, so I don't think Smith still has the pace of.
Yeah, well, I think Smith is going to be reasonably happy with the pace that he's shown so far. He's just kind of incrementally chipping away at Douglas as well, probably saving up those push-to-passes until he gets in the slipstream of Dave Douglas to try and make a move. I'm not sure how many push-to-passes Dave Douglas has used so far throughout this race, but in any event, it's going to be a battle between them for the end. I think Smith has definitely brought the gap down on this lap. It's difficult to see with them both being a lap down exactly what the gap is, because unfortunately our timing screens doesn't give us that information. It's all about how far they are behind the leader. So, but I think that gap visually has definitely come down, and they're going to be getting stuck into each other over these closing laps.
Yeah, sure, a bit of a battle going on, which is a bit akin to last race. We had another parallel draw to last race. We had a bit of a lull in the race, Coda. And once again, we had a battle at the end of the race between, who was it? It was James Foster and Chris Purnell, if you think it was.
It was. Purnell coming out on top in that one.
See if we get another good one like that. I think Douglas will be pretty savvy here to hold off Aaron Smith, who... I'm not quite sure how experienced Aaron Smith is, whether he's new to racing or has done much IndyCar racing as such. I'm sure we might be able to find out after the race, but certainly showing some signs that he is pretty experienced out here today.
Yeah, he's handy, isn't he? If this is his first race, he's the best driver in the world. But I'd imagine he's definitely done this before. He's running up there in fifth place in a fairly quality field of drivers, and starting to put some pressure on the back of Dave Douglas. Looks as though that gap may have just it's sort of concertinaing a little bit. There's the tight sections of the track where he seems to be closing up, and it could just be the concertina effect at work, of course. But taking a very different line through there than Dave Douglas does, and coming out onto the straight, he's going to be in really good slipstream position. Don't be surprised to see him jump on the push to pass. I can't see, usually there's a light on the side of the car which will actually tell us when they do that. I can't see him actually activating that at the moment, which I'm a bit surprised about, but he's certainly right there with Douglas, trying a whole lot of different lines, just trying to just probe his defences a little bit at the moment. Expect to move soon.
Watch this space in the battle for fourth place here. Douglas trying to hold up Aaron Smith for fourth place. Obviously, we're running the Formula 1 style point system here, 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, and so on points. So it's a decent amount of points difference here. Fourth place would net 12 points to Douglas and 10 points to Aaron Smith, and you get to the end of a championship, and those 2 points can really make a difference.
Absolutely, it's always worth chasing an extra point because you don't know, how many championships there've been over the years that have been decided by a single point. So it's definitely something worth chasing for both these guys, worth chasing for Smith, worth defending for Douglas. I think the move's got to come here though. Look at how close Smith has gotten there. He's got to hit the push to pass now and get the job done on Douglas. I don't even think that Smith used the push to pass there either. I'm surprised he's not. Unless he's run out of them, or I don't know why he wouldn't be using it there, but he didn't appear to use it there. But that looked to be the golden opportunity for him to actually take that place away. Not quite sure why he didn't.
Maybe just biding his time for now, or maybe just, even if he does use him up, maybe he doesn't know he has them available, of course. If you haven't driven IndyCar before, you might not know about that push to pass system, so that is always a possibility through this tight turn 7 section. It's an interesting part of the track. What we might do here is we'll go on board with Michael Aaron Smith, and we'll show you a bit of this track from on board the driver's perspective. As you see Douglas there runs wide ahead of him, and you'll get a really good sense of the undulation of the track as they go up and down, a bit like a roller coaster in some sections, as they head back downhill again and back up to the right through what is turn 14. Looking to the inside of Douglas, can't quite do it now into turn number 15. He'll switch in behind Douglas. He's quite close again. If he has push pass available, now's the time to use it. But he won't use it. He'll fake out to the left, try and psych Douglas out as they go through turn 1. And now into turn number 2. It's still Douglas, though, holding off and doing what he needs to at the moment.
Yeah, he certainly didn't use the push to pass there, and I think he's actually costing himself a little bit because he's taking a very different line to Dave Douglas. Into that sort of double apex right-hander before the final left-hander leading onto the front stretch, and he's taking a lot tighter line through there. But what Douglas is doing, he's sort of double apexing it. He's diamonding the corner off, which means that he's sort of enticing Smith down inside there, but then Smith is losing momentum as Douglas goes back across the front of him, and that loss of momentum is hurting him all the way through the last turn and all the way onto the front stretch. So what he needs to do is actually try to mirror Dave's line or go even wider than him into that last right-hander and then carry that speed through the left-hander. Here we go again, all the way onto that front stretch. So he's doing it again, but he's got right alongside this time. But Douglas has got to hang on to that inside. He's going to try, if he's got sense, he's going to try and hold him back. And he just hasn't got the straight line pace, has he? Not yet.
What that line that he's taking through that last corner is doing is, it's allowing him to get alongside him almost. But it means that Douglas is able to take a wider entry into the last corner, which gives him the run down the straight. Whereas Michael Aaron Smith is quite compromised into the last corner because he's having to really cut back the car quite tight due to that late apex that shallow apex he's taking at turn 14. So that's part of the reason why he's not able to make the move down the front straight.
Yeah, he's going to have to try a couple of different things here, I think, if he's going to get that move done. It really does seem to be the only place on the track where he's got the necessary speed advantage to do it. But he's going to have to try and take Douglas's weapon away from him, which is that wider entry and therefore faster entry. But just on the battle for the lead as well, it's down to 7.6 seconds. Actually, just as we speak, it's gone back up to 8.1. So never mind.
He's a bit further back this time. Will he try and mirror Dave Douglas's line? Yes, he will. Look, no. He looks like he's tried to do it there, but he's not quite done it. He's carried too much speed through the apex, washed out wide, and compromised the job through turn 15 again.
Yeah, that's got to be. I I can't help but think he's either used all his push to passes or he doesn't know it's there, because there are a couple of times now when he could have actually had that position. Had he just not that push to pass button, he would have been through. Um, as far as I could tell, he hasn't used it, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I can only assume one of the two, but he's, for whatever reason, he hasn't got it available to him.
Just having a look at the steering wheel, trying to see if I can see any signs and whether push to pass is available for him. Now, if I'm looking at the right box, which I'm probably not, he might have 5 left, but I don't really know what that box is, so I'm probably wrong.
Look at that. Looking out there, that's got the 5 in it. It's actually the engine map position box, and I'm fairly sure that his actual settings don't display to anyone but the driver, because if you look at his front and rear ARBs, they're all 0, push to pass 0, fuel position 0, everything else. So I think that 5 is actually indicating he's in 5th position. But I don't think that anything else is sort of operating. The dash is saying 0 laps of fuel remaining and everything. So we're not getting all the data that he's got available to him, and that's something that iRacing does to prevent people spying on each other as far as learning the parameters of each other's vehicles.
I can do it in real life, though, can't you? You can look at the onboards of other people's cars. Maybe iRacing to step up their game there, eh?
Yeah, possibly. I know that just recently they implemented sort of working dashboards when you ride aboard someone else's car in terms of the engine revs and gears and so on. But yeah, the other little settings and so on haven't been implemented. If they're going to do it, they haven't done it yet.
Gary Hamilton's just started his penultimate lap, so he's got an 8.2 second lead. It's all comfortable for Gary Hamilton out front in that 111 car. That's my second favourite number to run in iRacing, so I'm glad he's not running my favourite number. Number 11 there. And it's still Smith behind Douglas. He can't get it done.
Yeah, he's just dropped off a little bit. Now I'm sort of starting to think that perhaps he hasn't got what it's going to take to get it done, and maybe Douglas has got that position, but of course he could just be hanging back a bit, regrouping, cooling those front tyres off, ready for a charge towards him at the end. But of course these guys have only got that 2 laps to go as well, so if he's going to do it, he's got to get on with it.
Yeah, he certainly does. Hamilton is coming around the turn 15 for the penultimate time today. He's going to come across the start-finish line for the almost final time. Got a bit ahead of myself there. One more lap to go for Gary Hamilton then. Final lap, and again, it's been quite a dominant performance. Not quite as dominant as Coda in terms of the entire field, but from third on back, he's absolutely decimated them. And James Foster, in the end, has not got much for him, has he? He's going to finish about 8.5 seconds off him.
Yeah, a lot more for him here than anybody had for him in Coda. So it's good to see that gap close up, but certainly not enough to actually take that win away from him. I'm just having a bit more of a look at Douglas and Smith. They're still sort of nose to tail coming through the last turn, and I think that this was probably just right now as Smith's last opportunity to get around Douglas, and he's not close enough. Of course, they're not going to go through that turn again, so I'd be surprised if he manages to get that move done unless he throws a real strong move up there. Douglas just hanging. Oh, Douglas is... Hey guys, I say that, they're side by side now. Douglas seemed to make a little bit of a mistake. He's still holding on to the inside. He's going to have to get it stopped around the apex there. They do touch one another, and it looks as though Douglas is going to stay ahead. But I think while we're watching that, Gary
Hamilton's going to win the race. Yep.
Well done, Gary Hamilton.
And now let's go back to Dave Douglas and Aaron Smith.
Let's. I think they definitely did make contact just before, but I think barring some other banzai move, it's going to be very, very difficult for Smith to do anything about Douglas. We do have a straight here, but he's not quite close enough, and the braking point not quite heavy enough.
Might see a dive.
Yeah, maybe.
He's giving him a touch. He's put himself around.
Well, I mean, he had to have a go, but if you're going to drive into the back of somebody, you deserve to sort of spin yourself, don't you, rather than the guy in front.
Yeah, not the smartest of moves. Douglas is pretty primitive what he was going to try to do there and shove it up the inside and just shut the door in his face. Good job there from Douglas, and good job from Smith to do a full 360 keep it going there. But it looks like that's pretty much the field sorted out. So they're going to rush through the results of that one.
Yeah, certainly will. So Gary Hamilton, 2 from 2 now. taking the victory here at Barber Motorsport Park. 8.9 seconds in the end ahead of James Foster was all that separated them after 54 laps here. And Ashton Crowder holding on to third, Dave Douglas fourth after that battle with Aaron Smith, who's going to wind up fifth. Then we're looking back to Michael Skurlock, Josh Carroll Walden, who we saw have that incident in the pit lane earlier on, but he's recovered from that to come home in seventh position. Then we've got Mirko Dortnack. Bruce Barnes had a quiet race actually, but managed to finish ninth, 2 laps down, and actually last on track of the guys who finished. Then we're down into our retirements: Purnell, Boyce, Clute, and Beaumont.
Well, another decent race start series, and closer than Coda, that's for sure, for the lead of the race. And if we see that sort of reduction next race, it's going to be absolutely thrilling race, isn't it, over at ISM?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it will be a lot closer because I mean it's just such a shorter track, and you've got a few guys in there that are really handy around the ovals. So I think it should be a really exciting race. I hope there's not too many cautions because Phoenix can lend itself to that. But anyway, if these guys put their mature head on and get amongst it, it should be a really good race.
Should be a cracker. Just waiting for Hamilton, hopefully, and James Foster to jump into the waiting room here for the broadcast booth. We don't have one person out there at the moment, which is an also familiar face, Ashton Crowder. So I'll drag Crowder and see whether he met his expectations with this.
Absolutely.
A real racetrack.
It is a real racetrack, Ashton Crowder. Ashton Crowder, it's Ryan Jones up in the performance he's streaming booth. Third place today. Almost a disappointing result for you. You say you're still winning.
Nah, that's not disappointing at all, really. I don't think I've ever ran a race with this car. So going into this, I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of expected to wreck and die on like the first lap or so, but yeah, didn't happen, thankfully. But I was really slow compared to what I was at the end of the race. I got lapped by Gary, and then immediately, like I was on a totally different track, I picked up like a second in lap time. I don't know, but it was really fun, and yeah, Barber Motorsports Park. Never ran it. Really good.
Yeah, well, if it's any consolation, Hamilton lapped everyone, except with the exception of James. So you're not alone in that one. But I think that's a bit of an issue then. If that's the first time you've driven that car and you've brought it home in third place, there's an oval next round. I think we might see you contending for the win. Is that something you might expect to maybe be up there fighting for the win next time out?
Uh, which track is it? Gateway?
I think it's ISM.
Okay. Well, uh, I don't know. I know these things have a lot of aero push, which is what we have to deal with really bad in peak. So I may have more knowledge than maybe most with that, but there's a lot of unknowns. Like this car is so much different from what we run in like Cup and everything. It's just a totally different beast. So hopefully I can get a good result, but I just got to cut out some mistakes. I made a lot.
Bloody Ashton Crowder and his mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, I did this last week as well, and I've done it again tonight. I've got it in my head that next round is ISM Raceway. It is Gateway. I've just
There
checked.
you
It is
go.
Gateway. So
Super
yeah,
professional.
Gateway Motor Speedway. You should have a shot there. It's an oval, so we'll wish you luck for that one. Edward, any
Appreciate it.
questions for Crowder?
I guess looking at you mentioned that you've not really driven this car before, you're not really driven this track before. What are your impressions in terms of what it's actually going to take to catch Gary Hamilton? I mean, obviously the ovals are going to be a different story, but if you had to, let's just say hypothetically that this series was all road courses, what do you have to do to catch Gary Hamilton on these road tracks? You said that you learned a little bit when you were behind him.
Yeah, I don't think it takes a lot in the grand scheme of things. I think it's just little things building up, but I know when I was braking, I was doing it like a stock car because we set them up to go left, so you can brake while turning, and it doesn't really give up lap time. But yeah, anytime I was turning and braking, I lost like 2/10. So I think just learning the line and learning braking points and throttle input points and braking straight, like that was the biggest thing that was like really hard to get out of my mind because we go in like say Kentucky for example in turn 3 with the cup car and peak, like we would go in there, sail the thing in, slam on the brakes and just crank it left, and that just doesn't work in the because it's a road course car, so you're supposed to brake in a straight line. And yeah, it's just reprogramming your brain, I think, to really pick up on those little nuances of the car. And yeah, Gary and James really have that figured out. So got to minimize all my mistakes to go get them.
All right. Well, maybe bring some of your friends over. We could use a few more cars in these races. So get your mates together and come over for a bit of IndyCar action. But anyway, that is our third place getter, Ashton Crowder. First time in the car, first time in the track, puts a P3. So great result from him. And I think we can see James Foster sat there as well. Looks as though for the second week running, we're not going to get to speak to our winner, which is a bit disappointing. But we do have our second place getter, so I might bring him in and let you kick it off, Ryan.
I want you interview. I want to hear the brotherly banter between you two.
Do I have to start?
Yeah.
I can start. All right. I'll talk to him. Like I haven't done that before. All right. James Foster, second place. Talk us through it.
Yeah, how you going, guys? Yeah, never really felt like I had the speed to challenge Gary, but generally I'm happy with the result. I've definitely found some speed since the first round. I've just come into it much better prepared. So yeah, I was happy to get second place, but there's still work to do.
So, in terms of the opening laps of the race, when we were sort of talking about the fact that the gap hadn't really opened up. I think it was only around about 2.5 seconds at that stage. And you still had Hamilton in sight. And we were about 15, 20 laps in, and you could still see Hamilton. What was going through your head at that point? Because I would have thought that you found that fairly encouraging after last race.
Going through my head was thinking that he was just controlling the speed. I felt that he always had pace, and he was just monitoring the gap and saving fuel like he did in the first race. I never really thought like he was under threat. I just felt he was taking it easy and felt comfortable. But when I spoke to him after the race, he did mention that he was under some pressure, so that was encouraging. But I was just doing the best that I could do and waiting to see what happened. I never really felt like I was a threat, but yeah, it was encouraging compared to last race to be able to yeah, have him in sight for the majority of the race.
And when it comes down to the pit strategy as well, I mean, we saw in the first pit stop, Hamilton actually came in, made his stop, and came out into traffic. And we were sort of looking up here thinking to ourselves, it would have been ideal for you to jump into the pits immediately because that was about as good as the gap was likely to get. In the end, you ran a few extra laps and lost a couple of seconds in the pits. So just talk us through that.
Yeah, it was going through my head what to do. Immediately, I was thinking maybe I should follow him in because it was a completely different setup to Circuit of the Americas where you were really borderline on fuel at the end of the race. The way this was set up is we were going to be comfortable with fuel. So he was obviously pitting with fuel still in the tank to give himself a shorter stop, but the difference in stop time was very minimal, and I was hoping that with the situation I was in, potentially I was going to be on lighter fuel and it wasn't going to be so bad. And then the plan was to do sort of the same thing back to him later in the race. I was sort of hoping that I could extend the middle stint when he pitted early again and I could be on fresher rubber, but I wasn't really in a position to take advantage of that.
Well, we did see you on a couple of occasions actually narrow that gap. And it only kind of happened every couple of laps or so on. You'd bang in a lap and you might gain 0.3 on him or something like that, and then he'd extend it back out. And it seemed to seesaw a little bit, but a lot of that time that Hamilton wasn't actually in traffic. So you had it in you to bang in a lap faster than what he was doing. But just I'm not sure if he was sort of alternating his speed or you're a little bit inconsistent in yours.
Yeah, well, I felt my pace was pretty consistent until the last stint. I was a bit disappointed a couple of times with the traffic. I felt they could have moved over a bit earlier, but that's what it was. Yeah, I thought relatively speaking, my pace was pretty good and consistent. But yeah, the last stint, I started to fade away a little bit, but I was more just bringing it home by that point.
Yeah, we're sort of saying at the sort of towards the end of the race that it probably wasn't over just yet, but it was almost getting to the stage with no pressure behind that you're going to have to raise the white flag and bring it home in second place. So well done on the second. Anyway, Ryan, do you have anything for James?
No, I think you pretty much nailed all the questions I would have asked. So yeah, good job.
All right, no problems at all. Well, we'll let you go there. And well done. We'll see you in the next round at Gateway.
Yeah, that's another round that's completely different that I'm going to have to be very well prepared for as well, because there's a lot of guys in the field with a lot of oval racing experience, whereas I haven't even done an oval race in this car before. So yeah, we'll just have to put the laps in and get up to speed.
All right, no problems. Well, that's James Foster, second place tonight. Second place in the updated points as well, behind Gary Hamilton. So, what we might actually do now, we've got a few guys just sort of milling around out there. Ryan, is there anyone in particular you'd like to talk to?
Grab Dave in, and we'll talk
All
to
right,
Dave
Dave Douglas,
about
fourth
that
place.
that battle at the end with Michael Aaron Smith.
I think so. I think that'd be my choice as well. So I'll bring him in, and you can do the honours.
Dave Dingo Douglas, driver of the number 10 Harley Curtis Design IndyCar. Fourth place tonight, third in the championship. Congratulations, mate. You just managed to hold off Aaron Smith at the
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, no, that was some good fun racing towards the end there. I had to get the elbows up, and I certainly did that on the last lap. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I hit the pit lane speed limiter coming out of the hill out of turn 2 when I was trying to push the pass, and it gave him a chance to get alongside me, but I was able to hold him off and just stop him from getting the undercut.
Yeah, they're probably two buttons you don't want to get mixed up too often. So that you could do a bit of damage to your engine hitting that pit limiter to 220 k's an hour.
Yeah,
But
mate.
you managed to hold on.
Yeah, held on just. I don't think he was too happy about it, but it was just a bit of defensive driving. If you can't make the pass, mate, you got to make it hard for him, especially when you're racing for fourth. I got to take advantage of those guys having a bit of trouble up front. So it is what it is.
Yeah, we were watching that battle into the last corner on that last lap, and I was expecting the dive from Barron Smith up the inside. We'd seen it a couple times already, and you just showed that defensive line. You did exactly what you needed to do. You shut the door, and he wasn't able to get by. But we saw him pretty much drive into the back of your car. Did you feel that and get a bit loose, or is it just a bit of a didn't realize it happened?
Yeah, I certainly felt it. Lucky for me, it didn't get me loose at all. But I saw him spinning in the mirrors. So yeah, as I said, it was just a defensive line. I knew he was quick there. That was the sector that I struggled in just through there. So I guess I knew I had to block there. The rest of the track I was all right. So yeah, I just blocked him, and like I said, it is what it is.
You came in fourth, but you were a lap down, a lap and a half off Gary Hamilton in the end. What do you think you need to do to close it up and get up there and fight for the win?
I don't know. Have you got a magic wand or something, mate, handy that I can use? Because Gary Hamilton was fast, and even James Foster tonight, he was going with him from what I could tell as well. So James has really picked up speed too over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we don't know what it is. We've got no idea. We'd love to talk to Gary Hamilton, but he hasn't jumped in, which is a shame. And James Foster certainly did a good effort to put it up there. But next race is Gateway, not ISM like I've been calling for the last 2 hours. Gateway Motorsports next week. No, 2 weeks time. You reckon you might be a bit closer there? It's an oval. You certainly know how to handle an oval.
Yeah, we'll show up and we'll give it a crack. That's for sure. I'm yet to see Gary on the oval, so no doubt he's a good steerer. So I'd say he's going to be up there again. But hopefully we can just close that gap a bit.
Alrighty, Edward. Any questions for Dingo?
Oh, do I have any questions for Dingo? No, I don't think so. I think you covered it all off. I mean, there was we did wonder what the issue was that suddenly allowed Smith up alongside you, because I was just in the process of saying that it didn't look as though Smith had too many opportunities to get you
Yeah.
in that part of the track, and it's and then suddenly he was right up alongside you. So yeah, definitely answered that particular mystery for us. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's it.
it looked as though you guys were taking a very different line through that sort of double apex right hander before the last turn. He was sort of putting his nose to the inside, whereas you were sort of double apexing it, making more of a V out of it. Was that something you were sort of consciously doing to try and extend that gap, or was it just what you felt to be the best line at that point?
Yeah, to be honest, it was really hard to pick your braking marker. So there's a gap in the fence that I found. I sort of broke there, and then sometimes I use second gear, but if I went too deep, I'd drop it back to first just to get it to pull up. So to be honest, I probably didn't run the same line at all any of those laps. So no, I didn't purposely run any sort of set line.
All right, well done anyway. Solid P4 and oval next, which should be very much your territory. So good luck there.
Yeah, cheers, boys. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
All right, well that's just about all I think. So I guess nothing left to say, but some final thoughts on the race, Ryan. What'd you make of it?
The racing was a bit closer than we saw last run at Circuit of the Americas. I feel it appears to be tightening up a bit more, which is good, and hopefully that continues on into a Gateway, not ISM, in 2 weeks' time. And looking forward to a good race there, first level of the season.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a completely different style, so very much looking forward to that. And of course, it's just going to be like that throughout the season, just alternating between these different styles of racing, which is great to see. It's great to have a championship that's this, as we've been saying all along, this diverse and demands so much of a wide skill set from the drivers. So, yeah, we're very much looking forward to it to see who's got the goods on the oval as well as the road courses.
Well, we're going to find the answer out. Is Hamilton a good oval racer in 2 weeks' time at Gateway Motor Speedway? But that's going to do us for tonight, I think. So, from all of us up in the booth, Edward Foster, our producer, Matt Hunter as well, thank you and good night. I will see you on Thursday for the next round of the Anscar Cup Series, and Edward will see you in 2 weeks' time at Gateway. Thank you and good night.